This is your macroeconomics video on minimum wage laws. Minimum wage is one of the things that causes structural unemployment. So we are going to talk about a number of different things. This particular video is going to talk about minimum wages. So let's take a look at our old friend supply and demand. So if you think of the labor market as a typical supply and demand graph, the supply of labor comes from people who are willing to work. The demand for labor comes from companies who are hiring. The horizontal axis, which is quantity, would be the number of laborers, and the vertical axis is the wage or price of that labor. So there is a typical wage equilibrium for each job, depending upon how many workers there are and how many companies have openings. The problem is structural unemployment occurs when jobs go away and they don't come back, and now we have a bunch of workers and not enough jobs for them to fill. One of the ways that this can happen is when the wages are set above the equilibrium. So at this higher wage number 1, this is where we have the quantity that's demanded. This is the amount of jobs available. But you can see that the quantity supplied is much higher. That means people who want to work for that higher wage, there's more people. Anytime we have a gap at the top of our graph, that is a surplus. In this case, a surplus of workers is called unemployment. So minimum wage laws typically require through the government that a business pays a certain wage. That wage is typically something higher than the business would pay on its own, forcing that wage up higher than what the equilibrium wage would be. This causes structural unemployment because this displaces workers. More people want to work. There are less businesses able or willing to pay that wage, and so they hire less total workers, thus creating the surplus. Now, this particular group of workers, people that work for only minimum wage, this tends to be a very small part of the U.S. economy, and people who work full-time for minimum wage tends to be an even smaller part. So this does not explain the full amount of unemployment. Typically, people working minimum wage jobs are people who are picking up a spare part-time job, or people who are doing things like working while they're in school, or looking for a kind of a side job.